Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Just give us that Star Wars, don't let it end. Well, maybe not release one movie a year so everyone doesn't get Star Wars fatigue, but whatever, keep bringing on the Star Wars. Solo, a Star Wars story, is the second live-action Star Wars theatrically released spin-off coming after the heels of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And this movie takes place dead center in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, 10 years after Sith, 10 years before New Hope. And this movie follows a younger Han Solo as he joins a group of thieves to try to do this one job for a big-time gangster in an attempt to gain some money. And on this journey, Solo encounters his Wookiee partner Chewbacca for the first time, and it ultimately leads into how he became the famous smuggler that we know him from in the original trilogy. Now, I actually don't know if it's fair to really review this movie given the handicap that it has, because if you've been keeping up with this film, you know it's gone through a hellish production. They originally had Phil Lord and Chris Miller on board to direct the movie, and then just a few weeks before they were going to wrap production, they were fired due to creative differences, so they immediately replaced them with Ron Howard, who pretty much had to reshoot most of the movie, and it just made me lose faith entirely. On top of all that, I just felt like a Han Solo prequel was really unnecessary, because one of the great things about the original trilogy is the sense of mystery to everything that we know, and that's one of the big things that hurt the prequels so much, outside of them just being poorly made, is that you kind of ruin a lot of the mystery that the original trilogy gave us. So I was really skeptical about this one. At the same time, I've come across a number of examples on how this could possibly turn well. Superman 2, Richard Donner was booted off that movie and replaced with Richard Lester, who had to reshoot most of that movie, and that ended up being the best Superman movie. So there was always a sliver of hope, and I think considering what this movie went through, it actually came out pretty decent. I don't think it's great in the slightest, but I think it's a lot better than you'd expect it to be. Let's get the first elephant in the room out of the way right now. The one thing that everyone's really concerned about: Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, because he's the first actor to take over the role of Han Solo from Harrison Ford, who, as we all know, gave his final farewell performance as Han in The Force Awakens and was killed in that movie. So how does Alden Ehrenreich hold up? I think he does a pretty good job as a young Han Solo. He's not doing a Harrison Ford impression, which I'm actually grateful for, but he still manages to deliver the spirit of Han Solo. When I look at Alden Ehrenreich in this movie, I don't really think to myself, oh, that's an actor playing Han Solo. I look at him and go, that's a younger Han Solo. He's got the attitude, he's got the witty dialogue, the chemistry between him and Chewbacca is really good. I believe this guy to be a young Han Solo. And then the one thing that everyone has been gushing about before this movie even came out, Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. Yeah, he's great. Everyone's been predicting that he's going to be great, and he very much is. He captures the spirit of Lando, and he acts in a way where we can believe that this guy was once a smuggler before he became the administrator of Cloud City and actually had to take responsibilities. What I like about Lando in this movie is that he's very cocky, he's full of himself, and we all know that he originally owned the Falcon, and there's a lot of moments in this movie just showing off Lando's ego that kind of had me chuckling. It was really amusing, I gotta say. And then Chewbacca is the same as he's always been. A lot of people are saying that Chewbacca steals the entire show in this movie. I personally don't think so. He's good, but we just saw Chewbacca 2 times beforehand in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Granted, he has more to do in this movie than he did in The Last Jedi, but I feel like Chewbacca was more interesting and more memorable in The Force Awakens than he was in this movie. And it's just really not all that special, and this kind of goes into some of the problems that I had with the movie. This is not really that much of a special Star Wars film. It's fine, it's perfectly entertaining, it's fun, but there's nothing about it that screams grand or epic, which maybe that's what the franchise needed. We don't need every Star Wars movie to be grand and epic in scope, but this one felt a little lackluster in a way. I do like the tone, how it's sort of a heist gangster / western movie, but there were a lot of parts about it that felt very underwhelming, especially when we get into the area that that I was so nervous about the movie doing, and they did it. How Han Solo acquired all this stuff before we see him in the original trilogy. There were a lot of points where they give us origin stories for some of these little pieces that made me roll my eyes, and that's probably the most it did. It's not like in The Phantom Menace where we find out that Darth Vader built C-3PO, and you watch that and go, are you fucking kidding me? It's not that bad. At worst, some of these little origin pieces will just make you kind of, okay, I mean, I guess we needed something. Not a fan of it, but whatever. And the movie actually feels very sluggish in the second half. Once we get into the big heist and the meat of the story, the movie seems to drag for a while, and you're not quite sure where it's going to go. Even though there are a few points later on where you can see things coming a mile away, and it just kind of falls into the realm of predictability. In terms of your other characters, they didn't really stick out that much to me. We have Woody Harrelson as Han's mentor, Beckett, and he's fine. He's Woody Harrelson, not much else to say there. We have Emilia Clarke as Han's childhood friend / love interest, Kira, and she and Alden Ehrenreich do have good chemistry with each other. I just didn't find her character to be 100% interesting. And then we have Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Lando's droid co-pilot, L337, and she's kind of K2SO 2.0 in a way. She has a different motive in the sense that she cares about droid rights and just wanting all droids to be equal, which is a neat concept to explore within Star Wars, that we have this droid character out there fighting for rights for all droids, but her attitude and some of the lines that they give her feels very much like they just pulled the personality of K2SO and put it in her. I just didn't really find it all that memorable. And just like with a lot of this movie, it did go into the realm of, we've kind of seen this before, and so recently. So if I were to end this review on a somewhat high note, I think the movie's overall fun. It has some great action set pieces, like with the train sequence that we see in the trailers. One of the earlier action sequences kind of plays out like a World War I war setting, where you have the Galactic Empire fighting off a bunch of, I don't want to say rebels, because the Alliance wasn't formed at this point, but I guess it could be just a small rebel outbreak that's not fully formed into the Alliance that we know of. And then probably the most entertaining action sequence to me was the Kessel Run. That's not a spoiler at all. We know that the Kessel Run is in this film, and that's probably the most exciting the film ever gets for me. So on the whole, it's definitely a lot of fun despite some of the problems that I have. And I do have to give major credit to Ron Howard for being able to put this movie together in such a quick amount of time, considering that they didn't even change the release date of this film. But some of the stuff that you were worried about when watching this movie, some of those concerns are met, and then some of those concerns are still concerns. They're very much there. So I would say good, but not great. And this is almost spilling into watch at your own risk. It's a lot of fun. You won't regret seeing it. You'll enjoy being immersed in the galaxy far, far away for 2 hours and 15 minutes, but it's not really all that memorable. You're not going to really have the urge to go out and rewatch it again. And out of all the Disney era Star Wars movies that we have, I think this is the weakest so far. But still, it's a very good effort considering the big uphill battle that this movie had to fight. And that's my review for Solo, a Star Wars story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie if and when you've seen it. Go support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.